morning, Jess.
Good morning, Father.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. This is between masses on Sunday.
Yep.
We want to have the materials ready for the afternoon as we promised. And before we go into the temptations, which is the topic of the gospel this week, how is Lent going these first few days for you?
Yeah, I'm always so excited for Lent, and then the first couple days really hit me like a truck. It's been harder than I expected to slow down and to pray and be cheerful.
Yeah.
In the midst of everything.
And sometimes what we decide to do for Lent, it becomes also like the New Year resolutions, that we have good resolutions, but then we fail very quickly.
Right.
One point would be to go back in track. It doesn't mean that we have to abandon them completely. We can just recommit to them. For me, for instance, fasting is very important. Fasting in more ways than just food, but including food also. And I'm not doing great. I just was given some chocolate yesterday and I devoured them, you know. Chocolate was not one thing I was quitting, but you know.
But it's not really in the Lenten spirit. Yeah, I get it.
So, but I want to blame the person that gave them to me.
Okay, we won't tell them who it was.
So you've heard the homily. It's the first Sunday in Lent. It always focuses on the temptations. Mark doesn't have them. Matthew and Luke have them in a slightly different order. But I think it's important, and I have preached this for 20 years. The gospel begins saying, at that time, Jesus was led by the Spirit. So I think it's God desires this experience. But people look puzzled every time. 20 years later,
why would God lead Jesus into the desert? Right, exactly.
So any thoughts? What could be helpful for our faith groups people?
Well, something that hit me today that I've never really thought about before is that Jesus wasn't completely alone in the desert. Like the Holy Spirit led him out there and remained with him. And I think we all kind of know that the Holy Spirit is always with Jesus and is always with us, but I never stopped to think about it, that he wasn't alone. And so when we're going through this Lenten time and this Lenten retreat, to just remember that we're all in this boat together as a church, but God is with us too, and he's helping us and watching us fail and picking us back up again.
Yeah. He certainly is not alone because the Spirit leads him, but the devil is there also. It's interesting how our biblical tradition personalizes the devil. But I mentioned today that the devil may be in my life not with easily recognizable with horns and tail, but probably in disguise, no? And sometimes in things that look good in principle.
Yeah, and that's interesting to me because the word Satan, as you know, comes from the Hebrew Hasatan, the accuser, so less of a devil horn with a pitchfork type of character and more of a character that's trying to trip us up.
One thing I reflect about with this gospel is the idea that since you mentioned the Hebrew, the Greek temptation is test, and Jesus is being tested, so it shouldn't be. And I think from many spiritual traditions, but the spiritual exercises I mentioned in the homily, there is this idea of knowing yourself. And temptations are those things we recognize in our life, situations or things or ideologies or values that push us in the proximity of sin. So it's good to know what they are.
Yeah, and that's why your fasting and my fasting could look different, and your prayer and my prayer look different.
There is one I may mention at 10 o'clock, but I didn't mention it at 8. One temptation I was thinking about this morning is the one that when I do something good or something right, I need to be compensated. And I don't mean money. Money is
but like the acknowledgement.
For some people is the acknowledgement, for other people is something else, you know. But I don't know. I mentioned some temptations. I don't know if you've reflected about your own. Mine, frustration. I can easily fall into the temptation of frustration and anger when things don't go. I wouldn't say my way. I think when things don't go well. No.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm very similar in that way.
Yeah. Any other temptations? I worry about free time also. I think we don't realize how much time we have. I come back from a sabbatical, the concept of time was in my mind constantly because I had so much time, or in a different way. No, we can live a life of busyness and then we think we deserve rest or we deserve idleness. And maybe there is time for rest and for prayer and for refreshing, but maybe we are spending too much time on things that are not important.
Yeah,
also.
I'm trying to separate rest from idleness in my life this Lent.
Yeah.
It's been hard.
I also have preached in the past that these temptations, the devil asked Jesus if you are the Son of God. So those are temptations of identity. I have a priest friend who says that 85% of my homilies are about identity. It's an important topic for me. Temptations of identity. I'm a priest. You are a married mother of two, right? We are children of God. We are Christians. There are many, many identities that, and it's interesting that that's the temptation of the devil. He wants him not to be the Son of God.
Right. And it's interesting to me because the devil knows who Jesus is. He knows Jesus is the Son of God. So I don't know. Is he trying to trigger something prideful in Jesus there? I think so. But it seems like a weak attempt to me.
And you put together the questions so for the guide. So the first temptation, turning stones into bread, it's very open to interpretation and how that one specifically plays a role in our lives. For me, it's the showing off, right? That to use the talents we have to serve ourselves instead of serving others. Or for a priest, it could be not bread in the New Testament means that you give something that covers the basic need without covering anything else. And it could be, if I would preach to look fancy or to look very intellectual, if I would preach what I want to preach to serve me instead of preaching what people need to hear, no? Sometimes we have the temptation of preaching what people want to hear instead of what they need to hear, no? But so I'm very interested about what lay people would think about that first temptation.
Yeah, I think it's the temptation to justify oneself a little bit, you know, because who would blame Jesus for transforming stones into bread to break his hunger after 40 days? None of us. So it's very easy to justify.
You are taking it individually, yeah.
Right. But like you said, the temptation to ignore those around you, because I'm trying to put this into words.
Yeah.
Jesus could have very easily turned stones into bread to feed himself, but instead he uses his life to become bread for us. So he goes beyond that, which is, I think, what you were getting at a little bit.
No, but it's different tradition, different theological approaches. Yours is very interesting to me because that's not the first thought I have, but it's very interesting. Yeah. So the questions may look similar to what we've always asked on the first Sunday in Lent, and that's not wrong. We are in different stages in our journey of life, and maybe people see things differently than a year ago. Plus, I'm sure that it happens to everyone. We don't remember what we thought about a year ago.
Exactly, yeah, and I think it's good to start at that baseline point. So
very good. So we hope that people enjoy the session, and we'll see each other again for the third week in Lent, which is always the Transfiguration. So
looking forward to it.
We can start thinking about it.
It's one of my favorite days. So.
Very good.
All right.